I'm pastoring my second church in Atlanta, the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm like 31, and I pastor it till I'm 46. So I've got a 15-year view of ministry in one church among one people group. And what I like to joke about is I had 5 years of double-digit numerical growth over the previous year. So from a business standpoint, it's an amazing, aggressive, upward, trajectory.
Yeah, man.
What most pastors are looking for.
That's what, and I had, ambition and dreams and secret thoughts about being the next big to
shot,
do. And,
big deal.
And we were on that trajectory. Well, I stayed in one church long enough to know that is not going to happen forever. And so after 5 years, we had another 5-year season or cycle where we just kind of leveled off or plateaued. And then the last 5 years, because of the demographics of our community,
That's why.
we had outgrown, at least, listen, it's my story. I'm going to tell it my way. So the demographics shifted and people began to move, and we chose to stay. And so the growth of the church began to decline. And so I jokingly tell folks, if you want to know how to grow church, I can help you. If your church is leveled off or you're plateaued, I can probably help you. And if your church is in decline, I probably can help you. So whether it's going up or down, I'd sure like to help you, And being a consultant, I'm grateful for those seasons so that I have a really broad experience of church and everything. So the ministry went up and down. Here's how it ended. It ended with and I think I said it on a previous episode, we had come to that church with a lifetime commitment to pastor one people and one group of people for our whole ministry life. Wow. I loved watching God develop people and was grateful I could be a part of that. So that was our come from. That was our calling and our understanding from God. Stay and grow people and grow with people for the sake of the community. Well, I became unsettled about the emotional commitment I knew it would take to stay, but I wasn't released by the Spirit until I heard in my spirit a check, and the check sounded like this: unless you put your resume together, you're being defiant. And I'd used that word before in a previous episode, but I heard it again. And so I thought, well, I don't mind being a lot of things, but I just don't want to be defiant.
Wow.
So I put my resume together. Make a long story short, God was gracious in helping us work through 8 different specific things I could leave the church and go do, including starting my own business. And, I was so hurt and disappointed with how things had gone in the church. I was willing to do just about anything.
Wow.
But in our denomination, the way that you transition is you put out your resumes, you have your friends, and you begin to just circulate and find a church and network.
Yeah.
Find a church that needs a senior pastor, and I thought I'd go be another senior pastor. Well, the transition was remarkable, and I really believe that God was inviting me to give up the comfortable for the uncomfortable, to give up the familiar for the unfamiliar, to give up what was easy for what was going to be super challenging. And so I was invited by the Spirit of God into the biggest transition I'd ever made in my whole life. It eventually worked out that the transition was to this ministry culture where I would be serving on a team, and we would be connecting with senior pastors, other church ministry leaders, but particularly doing consulting and coaching. And I love it. And I, by the way, remembered, I did a paper in seminary when I was 27. And at the end of the paper, talking about career and ambition goals and stuff, I thought, when I'm older, I would love to work with other pastors, to love them, care for them, and serve them and support them. And here I am getting to do
exactly what you do.
What God was developing all of those years. So I love the ministry in the local church, and I'm for the local church. And this ministry, as you guys know, is about helping those kinds of leaders. And so my ministry career, midlife, I'm 46, I actually move into this thing. And the kicker is, in our denomination, the funding was quite different. Churches gave to one body, and they supported all their missionaries through the giving of local churches to the one body. In this particular assignment, we get to raise all of our own financial support. And so it was a huge deal for us to come to this organization and realize, okay, if that's the deal, God, how are you going to do it? And I've got some stories to tell about that I could tell. But at any rate, let me just pause and say 15 years, 21 years in 2 churches. The leadership journey was profound and became very intense in the last couple years of that 15-year pastorate. And I knew God was moving us, and he released us into this new ministry, but it wasn't without a lot of hurt and pain and uncertainty. You know, like somebody says, it felt like we were walking naked into the land of uncertainty. Just exposed, vulnerable, hurt, came into this ministry really broken and bleeding, and then found a team that was doing life a little differently, and it was healthier for me. So what connects, what resonates? How are you curious about any part of that or none of that? We can talk about something else.
Let's move on.
Okay, yawn, big yawn. All right, gosh, we've lost the whole audience.
Well, I thought this was all just wood, hay, and stubble.
Well, I did confess most of that. Now you know why it felt like a lot of wood, hay, and stubble. It was highly combustible, is what I said.
I just like, David, I just like the way that you had that, you wrote that paper, right? You said about the thing you'd love to do someday. And
it was probably my mid to late 20s.
Wow, yeah. Wow. And 20 years later,
that's right.
that cropped back up because it was God implanted and real. And what a cool connect.
And it helped us with the calling to this ministry to know that was in my heart. And Becky knew it. And I'll just tell this story about Becky. So you know how it is with your wife if you're thinking about a career move and you're a little apprehensive about, sharing with your spouse that maybe there's a change coming. So I remember coming home saying, I think I'm to put my resume together and begin to circulate it. I think God's telling us we need to leave our church. And I'll never forget what she said. She'd been in a Bible study, a community Bible study, and they were studying the book of John. And she kept hearing in her spirit, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. My sheep hear my voice and they follow me. My sheep hear my voice and they follow me. So I don't know any of that. And so I say to Becky, I think we're supposed to interrupt this life call with some kind of change. And I don't understand it all. And I'll never forget, she said, David, I've been ready to leave the church for 6 months. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a gift. That God had already been speaking to her privately, preparing her so that when I kind of went in saying, I don't know, I think maybe, what do you think? She's very clear. She'd heard from God, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. So that was kind of the come from that gave us permission to explore the next season of life and ministry. So thank you, Nick, for affirming God's work. The tapestry illustration, it looks bad on the backside, but you turn it over and you see how God's been doing what he's doing. It's really good. So I mentioned the challenge of raising our own support, and really what is behind that, in my opinion, is God inviting us to take the largest step of faith we'd ever taken in our Christian journey. Now, that confronted what I had expected about the leadership journey as a senior pastor. I thought it was supposed to get easier all the way up till seeing Jesus, right? You're faithful and you're obedient. So that's what I thought. I thought, okay, you're faithful, you're obedient, you're doing what God's called you to do. It's just going to be a trajectory.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, it's going to get easier. Well, in fact, this was more difficult because we had to trust God all over again. We had to trust him anew.
New ways.
A new way.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and so we said yes, we went on the journey. And I remember the transition from what was to what is now And that was, back then, it was significant because God had to do an inner developmental work to prepare me for the very work that I would be doing with senior pastors. And that meant breaking my addiction to doing and introducing this whole way of being. It meant reformatting and reforming my heart. I talk about it as a recalibration to separate who I am from what I do. And so there was a performance issue that was connected to my identity. And so God was helping me to pull those apart so that they are separate. Who I am is not what I do. They're different. And so that's been a journey. The journey of raising our own funds, God has met us miraculously over and over and over, which increases my faith, which produces courage to trust God with more. There's a cancer diagnosis that's really serious, melanoma, for people that have had melanoma cancer. If I say stage 3B, that's pretty serious. There's only 4 stages. And so to live on with the increased uncertainty of life expectancy is huge. And God met me in profound ways through the scriptures and through people, and reassured me that you like to say, Kurt, he's got me.